evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture, joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, Mark.
Hi there.
Very nice. Joined as well by the king of the Mahoning. You know him, you love him. Owner, projectionist extraordinaire, Jeff. Say hello, my friend.
What it is.
What it is. It's becoming a staple. We're going to have to get a t-shirt made, so look out for that soon. And a nice segue for our guests today. We talk about our community, our growing community a lot on this podcast, but without our internal team and the community, this engine really does not run. And today's guest has been an essential piece of the puzzle for us for so many years. Besides his busy schedule as owner-operator of LVAC, Lehigh Valley Apparel Company, the peeps responsible for printing all of our t-shirts that you love on site. He's also king of the ring at the Lehigh Valley Athletics Council, who puts on the hypest area wrestling shows, including Real Rumble with us at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. You know him, you love him. Welcome, Chris Reject, to the podcast. Welcome, my bro.
Hello, everybody. I feel like I have to follow Jeff and Mark. They made very good entrances. I got nothing. But Jeff, you want to make a shirt? I know a guy who can make a shirt out of that.
That's
you know?
right.
That's all I got.
So this is a long time coming. We've been trying to connect the dots to be able to get you on the podcast. Not only do you do so much for us on the lot with the screen printing, but you are very much a huge supporter of the Mahoning, somebody who has motivated these crazy ideas that we have. And your friendship means so much because you really are a connective tissue. I see you almost weekly going to pick up t-shirt orders and being able to touch base with somebody who, like myself, is a young hyphenate. He does multiple things. He's got his finger in a lot of pots. You really do fuel the fire for us. So excited to have you on.
Yeah, welcome. I mean, I thank you for having me. You know, it's very exciting to be here. It's definitely you talk about a lot of irons in the fire, Virgil. It's really a type of mental illness that we have where we need to overburden ourselves at all times, you know. But
I don't know what it is, you know, like
idle hands, you know.
That's
Virgil.
It's like
constantly trying to find happiness in things is like it's a way of life. And I think the creative twist that we put on everything, it naturally feeds the soul, you know, and that's the thing that I love about you is, you know, your businesses obviously are very creatively driven, but you seem to always find time to give back and, you know, kind of be there for friends. And you're just a real solid example of a dude doing his thing.
Thank you, Virgil. That's very flattering, you know. I think that like sort of my philosophy is that a lot of our value in this world is defined by how we can have impacts on people around us and how we can enrich the lives of those in the community that we share. And,
Yes.
You know, and if making shirts helps Mahoning do better, then damn, dude, I want to make shirts. You know what I mean? And that's, and that's,
Cool.
You know, that sort of defines who we are, I think, is how much of a positive impact we can have on the community around us.
Totally. And
Beautiful.
You are, the way you run your business is very like-minded in what the Mahoning does. It's personality driven. It's not just, it's your local drive-in. Yeah, we print t-shirts. You can stop in when you need work done. When you work with somebody, you truly kind of become part of their team and part of their mantra to go and kind of go after their thing. So I think that's the like-minded kind of connection and the reason that we so gravitated to you guys for our regular work is like, yeah, these dudes are totally like one of us. And obviously we see you guys on the lot all the time, which is a nice touch.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking Mark sent over some real quick bullet points, like, oh, he didn't give me many like advanced questions, but he was like, oh, we'll just talk about like history of drive-ins and the t-shirt origins and the wrestling stuff, and the usual stuff that we'd expect to talk about. And it made me think about the first time that I came to Mahoning was Bike Night, the night that's featured in the documentary. That was the first time that I was there.
Gosh.
Yeah,
2017. Might have even been 2016.
No, it was before 17. Yeah, it was.
And you're like,
17.
what's this video projection crap?
yeah.
You're like, I'm going home.
No, I remember that the 35 millimeter print didn't show up for Jaws, right? But Jurassic Park was still 35.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. No, I mean that was. I remember there couldn't have been more than a couple of dozen cars on the lot.
Totally.
I remember it was such a small thing, and to see what it's come to now is incredible. And then to also develop into being a partner with printing t-shirts for you guys and partnering on the Real Rumble events, like that is amazing. It's so nice to grow, because like you said, like I at my core despise capitalism, but we live in a capitalist structure. So the sort of idea that I have, and I think that this is a kinship in a way with the Mahoning, is just like, well, fuck it. Let's just figure out a way to game the system and do something that is about more than money, but makes enough money that we cover our bills, but it's driven equally by community, and it gives us an escape from the rat race, even though, some days it becomes our own rat race. I'm sure that you're knee deep in booking stuff, and when you have sold out weekend after sold out weekend after sold out weekend, it's probably a real grind, but it's our own grind,
Yeah.
That's nice.
It's reassuring that we're doing the right thing, seeing the growth, not just of our business, but the people that we work with, people around us, the artists, the, musicians that come through, the people who started coming and are like inspired by film. Now they're making film. It's like seeing that inspiration grow. It's just this constant cycle. Hayden's a perfect example. When Hayden came in, he was established in a way, but really kind of found his footing along with us. And to see him kind of smash off, do his own thing with the Luther and find his voice as an artist, it's kind of perfect,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know I've never met Hayden, so I was like, Hayden, but you're talking about the Luther's mid-fright snack, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is cool.
A lot of our poster art as well.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
awesome.
It's again one of those kind of connected personalities where it's like, this dude's just in it for the creativity, the love of it, which feeds us all, Gosh, Bite Night. So we could talk about hella history. First time on the lot, at least when we were doing retro. Have you ever been to the Mahoning before that?
No, I had gone to, I saw Titanic and Wag the Dog and something about Mary in the movie theater in that mall across like up the road. Cause I had a friend that lived in Lehigh when I was like in middle school, but I had no idea Mahoning Drive-In existed. I used to go up there and hang out. I was that close. I saw movies at the mall, but didn't know the Mahoning. It's just one of those things that you just miss,
Don't feel bad. 90% of the people who live in Lehigh don't know that.
That's correct.
That's about that. That's about it. We always used to get, is that place still open?
Yeah.
Yep. Still get it.
We always joke. People in California can't wait to come here. People in Lehigh are like, they say to us, I think that place is closed.
I'm like, I don't think so.
I love that.
Yeah. It's even myself. I was running the vineyard locally, and I consider myself a drive-in fan, and no idea, it was like a total discovery and a destined thing, just like our story here, how we have developed this relationship. There's so much to talk about, but let's keep it focused on drive-ins first. So I take it the Mahoning wasn't your first drive-in experience in life. Do you have any, were you lucky enough to tap a drive-in as a kid?
Oh yeah, the Starlight Drive-In, which is now a development that's long gone in Easton. I think I saw Coyote Ugly there. And then I saw, I went to Becky's as a kid. I think I saw Eraser there. I saw Twister for sure at the drive-in.
I saw Eraser as well at the drive-in. Great drive-in.
Yeah. So I think Starlight and Becky's were the two that I would go to. We wouldn't go all the time. My dad is like notoriously cheap. So we would go to the Roxy and the Plaza Twin a lot as a kid.
Those were second run $1.25.
Yeah. Roxy is in Northampton, and it's beautiful. It's like an old historic theater, and it's a second run theater. And then Plaza Twin was in the Whitehall Mall, and it was the same sort of vibe. It was, I think, a 2-screen, and it was buck and a half, whatever it was in the 90s. So we would always see movies there more because they were cheap. And my great aunt and uncle owned the Northampton Farmers Market, which was right next to the Roxy.
Awesome.
So my dad is like a handyman and stuff like that. So he'd go work in the market, fix some stuff up for them, and send like me and my cousins over to the Roxy to get out of his hair, you know?
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
So I have like a long history with, in fact, my cousin does. Are you guys familiar with that movie John magazine? I think
John?
Yeah.
It's like a movie John.
Pocket-sized zine.
Yeah, it's like a zine. Yeah, that's my cousin Rosalie who does that. And like we used to go to the Roxy all the time as kids. So I have like a deep affection and a long history with going to the cinema, you know? And then drive-ins, like I said, would be Becky's and Starlight. I somehow didn't go to Shankweiler's until a couple years ago for the first time. And now Matt owns that. So I have to make sure to get out there and check that place out. But
totally. Yeah. It's those early years are so important when it comes to the development of a movie kid, you know, like the idea of having that $1.25 Village Mall theater growing up as a kid that I could walk to if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It was literally, I could pocket money it. I could dig into the couch and find enough to go and just enjoy a movie. There's an arcade there. I could drop some quarters into the machines and make a whole entire day of it. I think those memories are just as important to the person that I am now as those video store trips, the cable, you know, influence of taping everything off cable. I take it you had that same upbringing where it's those trips to the video store, it's the special trips to the movies. It just felt like an experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would ride my bike up to the Lane Co. up the block from my parents' house, and we'd rent movies. And there was a video store and that did Nintendo games and same sort of thing, you know. But same exact thing. And like when we would go to the Roxy, when we would go to the Plaza Twin, they were sort of get out of our hair, a little latchkey kid kind of vibe to it, where it's just like that as a kid that comes with that freedom where you're just like, oh, I can go get in trouble. I can go do whatever I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
It mostly ended up in getting in trouble, but
it's that sense of freedom. Like that was a huge turning point where it's like, I can go to do this by myself. I don't need to have, you know, this parental supervision. It was a real rite of passage. Well, the love of movies runs deep. The experiences at the Mahoning run very deep. Obviously, Real Rumble are some of my favorite memories on the lot. I'm sure for you as well. But besides Real Rumble, any Mahoning memories stick out for you where you're just like, this was the night that I fucking fell in love?
I mean, Bite Night was definitely like,
that's a big bring us together night, you know?
No, that was for sure. Like getting there was just like, oh, these weirdos are the same kind of weirdos that all of my weirdo friends are. This place is pretty sick. You know what I mean? And I didn't think about what it would become. I think the second time I went up was Critters.
Early on. Yes, we had that hay bale photo op. We did Critters and Misery, maybe? Misery was in that weekend. I don't know if that was the connector. But that was a Halloween show of that year, 2016.
Okay. I saw, I think it was the one year you did a Stanley Kubrick weekend for the last show of the year. And I remember watching, or it was at least late in the season. And I remember watching The Shining.
Yes.
And sitting outside of the car, freezing to death, watching Jack Torrance freeze to death. And it was just like, this is it. Like, this is the vibe. You know what I mean? This is what we do. And that's definitely a memory that I'll have like forever, of just sitting there shivering under 4 blankets, watching, you know, Jack Nicholson freeze in a maze.
It becomes 4D at moments, you know. I love that.
Yeah.
Something you can only get at a drive-in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to refresh my memory, because as far as us working together and really you doing your thing, maybe you can give me and the audience a little more timeline. When did you start LVAC? And
let's see.
Does that kind of connect 2014-ish when we were doing it, or were you already well into your thing?
Oh, no. So the origin of LVAC and also the record label that I run called Square of Opposition, like the impetus for both of those were set in probably like 99, 2000. And that was when I first got plugged into like the DIY punk scene. And before that, I had older cousins that were into skateboarding. And so like, I understood like punk stuff and I understood skateboarding and like that. But then when I was like 17, I think it was, so that would have been 99, I met my first friends that were in bands. And that was just like, oh, you can just do this. Like, yeah, I like Bad Religion and I like the Sex Pistols and I like Fugazi, but like,
they're not real people.
Right. Like they might as well, they might as well be Nirvana or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or the Beatles. I don't know. And so that was like very eye-opening when we're just like, whoa, there's nothing stopping me from doing this other than thinking I can't do this, I guess, you know, and I might not be very good at it, but so what? And so I didn't play an instrument. And so my way of being involved was to book shows, put out records, and learn how to screen print. And the seed of that was just, well, people figure this out, and I'm at least smarter than some of those people. So I can probably figure this out. Yeah, I'm, I might not be the top of the heap, but shit, I'm not the bottom, right? I can figure this out. So that started, and then I want to say probably around 2010, maybe, I quit my job. I was a projectionist at a 16 screen, 35 millimeter Carmike, Allentown. It's an AMC Classic now.
My man. Yeah.
I was there for the digital switchover. I was the last projectionist they ever had. When I left, everything was digital. Like, you know, I remember we would occasionally get like low budget stuff on 35, or we would get like the high end. Like, you know, I remember when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, that was on 35. And I remember when Grindhouse, when that came out, that was on 35. So like there were a couple things around 35, but by the time I was gone, everything was digital and they just had the managers run the booth after that. So I quit that and I just started screen printing full time. And, you know, so that was when it became a little bit more real, obviously, because I always joke that the sort of cruel irony of LVAC's story is that I liked to screen print, so I decided to do that more, and now it's grown to the point where I don't get to screen print hardly at all, and I didn't want to have a real job, so I was just like, I can figure this out, and now I don't have to have a real job, and I can just fart around with my friends all the time, and now it became a real job. So, but that's cool because, like I said earlier, like we're all living in this rat race. The whole system is a rat race. So if we can find something that, you know, provides for us joy, and especially like in my environment, and I know in your environment too, like I've been given this privilege to create a culture around me that makes me happy. So I don't have like the print fam, the people that work for me, all of our clients, almost every single client, like we don't have any buttholes. We don't have to deal with bad attitudes and like shitty people, because like we care about each other and we care about what we're doing. And sometimes it's a job and it sucks, but like it's still better than the alternative. And I hired, man, just up until a couple of years ago, I hired people that I knew for years before I hired them. You know what I mean? And even when I started hiring people sort of like away from my direct knowledge, it was still like a second degree or a third degree, like a friend of a friend kind of thing.
Right.
And, we've been able to build a culture around the place that I think is a lot nicer than, working at Walmart or Target or whatever. So
yes. Can totally.
And then also like, I remember the specific origin of working with you because the day that you called me, I went to pick up my new exposure unit, and I had picked up that exposure unit. We were printing shirts for the Butcher and the Blade. They're a tag team of wrestlers that wrestle on AEW now.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the detail in the screens, and it was driving me up a wall. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go, because the company that made our exposure unit and our manual equipment is just down the street. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to spend the money to buy a new exposure unit and do this. And I remember I was loading it into my car when you called me, and I had Brad, who works for us, make that one color real logo that you guys use on everything now.
That's right. Yeah.
And I had pitched to you, hey, here's a cool logo. It would look really good. You should get hoodies. I remember for some reason I was on you about hoodies because I was like, nobody ever realizes how cold it gets up there. So nobody's ever prepared. You should sell hoodies. I think you'd make a mint. And that day, yeah, right. Hey, thank you, Jeff. I am a genius. I appreciate that. And you called me while I was loading, and it was VHS Fest. You missed delivery on your VHS Fest shirts. Whatever the story was there, I don't know. But you called me and you were like, what do you got? And I said, I cannot do a 3-color, whatever, front and back, but I have a box of orphaned hoodies from a different job, and I have this logo. Let's do it. And like that day, I think we burned the screen. Maybe the next day we printed them and you picked them up, or I came and brought them to you. But like, that was it. It was the being ready when the opportunity came. When that window opened a crack, I dove through that son of a bitch,
Yeah. You made that work for us and truly saved the day. I remember those OG hoodies are coveted because you gave us a whole bunch of different colors that we
there
never
were some charcoal ones. Yeah.
Pink. I remember the pink. Whoever has the pink hoodies, it's like rocking around royalty on the lot. They're like, how'd you get that?
Collector's item.
That's right. But it was
and
immediate as far as that connection. Like, this dude is there for us.
Right. And it didn't, I'm a big believer in like, there's enough for everybody. So I don't ever want to cut anybody's throat to make $1. I don't ever want to step on anybody to make $1, but I'm always ready to make myself attractive and make myself available. So when you're ready, I'll be there. That's sort of my approach to business. And there have been customers like where we've there was a sort of maybe a false start where like maybe they asked for a quote and it took us too long to get back to them, and or the job wasn't a good fit for what we do. And so it was just, hey, we'll catch you down the line. No big deal. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if it's our fault, sorry about that. If it's just the way the world works, sorry about that. We'll catch you down the line. You know what I mean? And we'll be around because I don't have a backup plan. This is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So I would never want to come. If you had somebody that you had a relationship with, I don't want to steal you from anybody. But when you call me and I can come through in a clutch, look at that. That's great. Yeah. So
it's the relationship angle as well. Like I'll never forget bringing Sandy in, and then the relationship that you guys were able to create, not just you and Sandy, but your team and Sandy, which is connecting to our team. It really was just the ease of knowing that, okay, these people know our brand. We don't have to kind of go through the steps of like, we're just a number in their dial. You know what I mean? It was always passionate. It was always you guys looking out for us, not just as, hey, you guys are good clients for us, but hey, we're also fans. We know what we would want.
Yeah. No. And I always say, like, whenever we talk about stuff at work, when we're like, if somebody's, all of our people bust their ass. Like, everybody there cares about me, cares about the company, cares about the product that they're putting out. And so a lot of times, like if one of my guys hurt his shoulder, and I go back to this sort of concept all the time where I say to them, listen, whether I care about you as a cutthroat scumbag who just wants you to produce, or whether I care about you as a person, I still want you to be better. Like, I still want you to do better. So like Mahoning, the better you do, the better we do. Together we can do better. And the fact that like, I'm not some bean counter dirtbag who only cares about the money, but like, even if you just break it down to transactional, because there are clients that like wouldn't bleed and don't have that love for LVAC necessarily, you know, it's a little more sterile, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like that's totally fine. But even in those situations, like I still want them to have badass shirts. I still want them to have the best that they can possibly have, because what's best for me is them thriving.
Right.
And so, you know,
Beautiful.
I do care. You know, I do care about Mahoning. I do care about 99.99% of our clients on a level beyond my checkbook, but it's still tied back to the idea of like a rising tide lifts all boats. So if I can help Mahoning, like it's as simple as, you know, Sandy loves the Toltecs, the 202, those softer shirts.
Yeah.
And I got word from one of my distributors yesterday that the price is coming down on something that's a little bit nicer, I think. So right away, I was texting with Sandy yesterday. I was like, I'm going to send you a sample of this. Let's see what we can do with this. Because now this puts this shirt that's a little bit nicer in that same price range. So let's see. And maybe, you know, maybe she'll get it and she'll be like, nah, I still like what I like. And that's totally fine. But I'm always looking for I'm always going to pitch something new. I'm always going to pitch a new idea, because going back to the Toltecs idea of like, those shirts are comfortable and people love them. So if you sell more shirts, that helps me. So let's do that. You know?
Totally. Yeah. It's the bar has been raised over and over again, you know, and like now there's a brand recognition, there's a expectation of quality, all that stuff. And just knowing that you're in our corner, it's never a concern. Like, we know that we're being looked after. It's not just like you know, I had these things laying around, find the easiest way to make this happen, you know?
I think that's also a product of like word of mouth has always been so good to us. I don't have a billboard. Yeah. I don't have radio spots. You know what I mean? Like, I sponsor the Southside Film Festival. We have a partnership that allows us to have our advertising on your screen. But really, and we do Real Rumble, and I do the wrestling events other places, and those are kind of tied, but they're like, I'm not selling shirts because of a wrestling show, but what other screen printer has a wrestling show?
That's what's great, you know?
There you go.
It's the forward thinking and the connective tissue, you know?
Right. So like our business relies on us putting out the best possible product because it's word of mouth. If Virgil and Mark and Jeff love us, then everybody they talk to is going to come through our door ready to love us too. You know, and ready to trust us because we know what we're talking about. We have respect for the craft. We have respect for their business and their needs.
Boy, has that worked tenfold, because that's like, I liken the Mahoning to a rock band a lot, you know, and it's like, it feels like in many ways the band has gotten more popular over the years, but the idea that, you know, everybody's got their position, people appreciate the people behind it, it's a total crossover with what you guys do. Like, the decision to work with you guys was like, oh, well, they're already a well-established band, they've been touring for a while, like, well, of course, let's team up, you know. So it's this kinship and this connection that I think really makes the partnership work.
Something that'll also segueing that, something else that might make the partnership even stronger is that we're moving a little bit closer to you very soon.
That's right. Nice segue. I was going to say, we could talk all day about the business, how you do your job, but I think the growth of the business is maybe the most appealing to the dreamers listening to this podcast. So why don't you talk a little bit about the big move and the growth of LVAC into their new location?
Yeah. So, I mean, before I said, you know, I started doing this because I wanted to be involved with other creative people. And then I started doing it full time because I didn't want to have a real job. And now it's sort of blossomed to this thing where, there's a team of 14 people, and we've been in a location in South Bethlehem for the last 6 years. It's about 5,000 square feet. And the landlord is in the other half of the building. He does a custom cabinet making. He's been amazing. He's been he's one of us. You know what I mean? He's a weirdo, just like the rest of us. Like, he gets it. Like, he has bills he's got to pay, and he's got responsibilities, but he still wants to do what he loves to do and still uses his heart in his business, And so mutual friends, he bought the building that we're in, and it was more than he needed at the time. So mutual friends put us in the same room. He didn't think I was a total asshole, shockingly. And so, we've been there for 6 years, and now it's at a point when I signed the second term of 3 years, he told me, this is going to be the last 3 years. My 3-year plan is to take over your side.
Yeah.
But that was early 21. Who knew up from down then? The pandemic was in its second huge wave. Yeah. It was it was a mess. Everybody thought the bottom was going to fall out. Sometimes it still seems like it's going to. So the last 3 years were a roller coaster, And so probably about just in the last calendar year, it started to get real of like, oh, I got to figure something out. And I started looking, and renting was more than a mortgage would be. But I never thought I'd be able to get a mortgage. So I worked with the LVEDC, which is it's the Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corporation. And I worked with the SBDC. It's the Small Business Development Center, maybe it is. And those are both nonprofits. One's run out of Lehigh University. It's a state level thing. And the other one is a local thing that goes up to a federal connection. And I worked with them, and they helped. They looked at my books. They went through everything. We talked about lending options. And very quickly, it became real that I could buy a building, which is insane. Because, again, I just did this because I didn't want to have a real job. Right. And now here we are.
Real. It's really real.
Yeah.
If we're taking on a building.
Right. And I sign a dozen paychecks every week. I never planned to have employees. Sure. This is nuts, And thankfully, I've been truly blessed by having wonderful people supporting both as customers and on the team. People, like I said, people that care more than the number that's on their paycheck, people that care about each other.
Yeah. They care about the brand, care about the company.
Yeah. And that's very much something that I know you guys get. You know what I mean? Mama Cheeseburger is not in that concession stand because she just loves cheeseburgers. You know what I mean? She's in that.
Right.
Or because you guys are giving her these fat checks. You know what I mean? She's there because she loves it. So
exactly.
Again, everybody's a little nuts involved in this.
Same here.
So we started looking around, and we found a building in Bath that's about 7,300 square feet. So it's a good jump up in size. But it was half a karate studio and half a chiropractor's office. So it wasn't fit out for what we needed. So we closed I want to say we closed at the tail end of July. And for the last, 4 or 5 months, how many months? I don't know how many months. It's been a long couple months. I've just been, oh my God, Jeff. Redoing the electric in the building, knocking down walls, pulling out flooring, putting new stuff down. This week, the building was without power because we were doing the final steps on switching. Some of my equipment is 3-phase as compared to single-phase electric. Yep. And so we had to do all new service, which is tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Overall, the fit out for what I had, there was no overhead door. There was only double doors for people to walk through. So I had to cut a hole in the side of the building.
Wow. Okay.
So all in all, the renovations and fitting it out to what we need it to be is well over 6 figures, which is just a staggering night. Yeah. I lose a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
So it's been a wild couple of months, and I'm trying to run my business. I'm also trying to be a project manager for the move. I'm trying to be a project manager for all these renovations. And of course, going back to the mental illness that I have, I just overburden myself all the time. So in like last year, from the spring until I think it was the spring to September, in 6 months or in 5 months, we did 6 wrestling shows. And every one of those is like, it's like booking a festival.
Oh,
You've
they're
got
monstrous.
between the ref and the announcer and all the wrestlers, you've got, 30 pieces of talent, 30 people that you're corralling. Plus you got to get a ring truck and make sure you have insurance, and you've got to go build the ring. And then besides that, you got to promote it. Yeah. So, we have a team of people that do that. It's, but there's like 4 of us, it's not, it's not a lot of people. So, it's been a crazy half a year, a little bit more. And, the power was supposed to get switched over. Today was supposed to be the day that they threw the lever. We ran into a problem, and now it might be tomorrow. It might be Friday. I don't know.
Fingers
it's one of those things.
Baby.
Yeah. But the technicians show up in 2 weeks to tear apart, or 3 weeks to tear apart the machines. And the rigging company shows up middle of that week. We're going, so it feels good for so long. It's like probably like making something out of clay. For so long, it just looks like a lump. Yeah. And then we're at this point now. First, it looks like nothing. And then you start to see it, but you're like, oh God, we have miles to go. And now it feels like we're close. We're on that 5-yard line. And like by this time next month, life is going to be different.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So we'll be right up the road from our pals at Mahoning. And, it's
Hop,
going to be
skip,
exciting.
and a jump. We'll be visiting often. That is for sure. Well, obviously we could talk about, a lot of different aspects of your life, but I think what's most interesting is again, all these different hats that you wear and the ever motivated character that you are. So what's the origin story? Not with wrestling, because we grew up in the same era. How could you not have the love of wrestling?
Hulkamania, baby.
That's right, in your soul. But your connection to wrestling and the local scene.
Yeah, so there was a local promotion called Chikara that a couple of my buddies were involved with, and like you said, when I was a kid, I watched wrestling. I sort of checked out a little bit as a teenager, and then I started dabbling again. As a projectionist, you have a lot of downtime because they were platter systems, so they weren't reel to reel. So there's not a lot of switching over. So you had a lot of downtime. So that's when I started getting like, oh, I'll read these wrestler autobiographies or whatever, And then Ultramantis wrestled for Chikara, and I've known him for years and years and years. He used to be in hardcore bands. Like he still is in bands. He's of that same cloth. Like he's cut from that same cloth. He's from the punk scene. And so I knew him. So I would print for him. And he was like really kind of the top guy in that company, not necessarily the winningest, but like the top personality, the biggest draw. People recognized him and came to see him, which meant his merch lines were always the longest. And so it came that same sort of idea. It was like, well, I want what that guy's got. And so then from there, I started printing for Dasher Hatfield and the Batiri and a bunch of other people, oddly enough, that we still that are still involved with our wrestling shows today. And that goes to show, like, these are people that I built friendships with and that I built relationships with. And that was back, the LVAC started, I was printing in a shed in my parents' backyard.
Yeah.
So that was, like I said, probably like 2010. And so these are people that I've known, for over a decade. And what happened, the final straw that sort of broke that camel's back was when we were moving from our old shop, which was a 2,000 square foot garage in East Allentown. When I was moving from there to Southside Bethlehem, where we are now, there was going to be like a 2-week gap where I still held the lease, but I was already moved out. And nothing in life goes as planned, so that really didn't end up happening. But I'm an idiot, and you give me 2,000 square feet to do something idiotic in, and I'm gonna do it,
The light bulb went off. You're like, wait a minute.
Right. We had like a couple of times we had bands play in the print shop over there. So like Ultramantis's band played a band called The World Is a Beautiful Place and I'm No Longer Afraid to Die.
Yeah.
They had a tour date, I think it was, fall through, and they're old friends. So they called me up and on like 24 hours notice, they played a show. And, you know, it's a small shop, but there's 60 people jammed in shoulder to shoulder. It's very cool, you know?
Hell yeah.
And so obviously I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to have a show here. And then I was like, well, I print for all these wrestlers and I'm friends with all these wrestlers.
I'm in the scene.
I wonder, you know?
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, I wonder if we could do like a couple wrestling. I mean, it's what exactly became the format for Let's Hang Out, which is the shows that we do at Sokol's.
Yeah.
Where it's a couple wrestling matches and a couple bands. And at that time, the move was a monumental undertaking. And I had never done anything with wrestling really. Like I had all these guys that I had relationships with and we had printed for them. I had gone to a lot of independent wrestling shows, but I didn't have a wrestling ring. I didn't have Pennsylvania. I don't know if you know this. Pennsylvania is a hillbilly state and it treats wrestling as a legitimate athletic competition like boxing or MMA.
Sure. Natural.
So of course they're the same thing. And so you need to have a promoter's license. You need to have a doctor. Like you have to go through guidelines that they have. And so I didn't know any of that. And it very quickly became apparent that it was like, this is too much. This is, I can't chew this. I can't bite. This is too much to bite off right now. So put that idea to bed, left that shop without any sort of fanfare, moved into the new shop, whatever. But for months afterwards, I would text Ultramantis or he would text me something about that idea, you know, like, oh, what if? Oh, whatever happened to that idea? Hey, maybe. And I went to Sokol's and I got introduced to the president of the club, a guy named Steak. I pitched to him. I was like, hey, and he's like a younger guy. He just turned 40. So like he gets it. You know what I mean? And Sokol's, like so many other Pennsylvania key clubs, like the townie member bars, when Pennsylvania pushed legalized gambling through, the very first thing they did after that was they cracked skulls on all the backroom gambling, all the stuff that, you know, the brown bag over the 40 on the street, like all that stuff where they're like, you know what, you're not bothering anybody. Well, all that had to go now because now it was legal. And so all these members clubs were just withering on the vine. The local skate scene discovered Sokol's, and then the local like punk scene discovered Sokol's. And so they let us do shows there. And it was worth a shot. I talked to him and I was like, hey, would you ever let us do wrestling here? And he was like, wrestling, like The Rock and Stone Cold wrestling. And I was like, yeah, essentially like that. Like, you know, not those guys, but yeah. And he was just like, sure, why not? So I just need the permission slip signed, you know, and then I'll go do something dumb. And so I think that was the summer. I think it was the summer of 2018, and it was Ultramantis and myself. Yeah. And I remember we rented a ring. We used somebody else's license. Like he came to the show and whatever. And, you know, he sort of shepherded us through that process.
Right.
And Ultramantis he knew more about it because he was real, like he's been wrestling since 2000. Yeah. And, you know, his entree into that was the more renegade punk rock sort of side of it, but he did elevate to a legitimate independent wrestler, you know? Yeah. So he was a little bit more experienced in it, but still had never promoted. So I remember we were there, we had the ring built, we were ready to go, and we were just like sweating bullets. And we're like, we're going to lose. And again, this is a festival. This is a budget. You know what I mean? This is thousands of dollars. Yeah. And we're just like, but we had to do it. We had to, it wasn't ever, the idea was never going to let us alone. It was never going to leave us.
You had to see it through.
Sometimes you have an idea and you just got to exercise those demons. And so I remember we were just like looking at each other and like pacing and wringing our hands and just be like, we're going to lose how much oh God, we're going to lose thousands of dollars. Like we're screwed. And then, you know, the doors opened at 7. And looking back now, it's silly. Like Mannequin Pussy played that show, and they're huge. You know what I mean?
Of course, they're gonna pull.
Spirit of the Beehive. I mean, these bands were not quite what they are now, obviously, but it's just like to look back at like Spirit of the Beehive are on Saddle Creek. They're huge. Mannequin Pussy, I think, are an Epitaph. Like they're huge. So it's like, it's almost quaint that we look back. And so anyway, doors opened at 7, and like, I don't know, maybe it was like 5:30 rolled around, and somebody came in. They were like, there's a line outside, and we had done. There were no advance tickets. It was all walk up. It was a Friday night, and I look out, and by the time we opened doors, there was a line down the block and a block over.
Come on,
and we were just like, oh my God,
they found us.
Like if there was, I mean, this is a Mahoning thing too. This is, if you build it, they will come. It's like, I didn't think, and I thought this was just something that my warped brain, a couple shows later, my friend Pat, he's in a band called Big Nothing at the time. He was in Sprainerd, and Big Nothing played the show, and during the wrestling, he came over and he was like, this is what it's like inside of your brain all the time. You are in heaven right now. And I was like, I'm in heaven and hell, because the stress is in hell, but like also in heaven. And then, but it's just like, if you cracked open my skull, this is like vegan food and punk bands and pro wrestling. And like, the type of pro wrestling too, I think is pretty specific in like, we all know what this is. And that's why I mentioned Chikara. That was my first experience when I went to a Chikara show. That was my first experience seeing wrestling where the audience were not a bunch of rubes. They were not the marks. Right. They were not the butt of the joke. Everybody knew.
They're all
everybody in. Like, you pay your ticket, you get on your ride, you have fun. And I think that like we have obviously, like, I don't want to just be a smaller version of somebody else. We want to do our own thing, but like that sort of kernel, that sort of like seed is the driving principle, I think, where it's just like, let's have fun with this. That's the kind of wrestling that I like. The stuff where, yes, it's incredible. Yes, the physical feats. And sometimes you forget that you're watching a show. Like, you really suspend disbelief to where you are so far down that road that you are wrapped, Yeah. But yeah, so it's just like that first show. Like I said, we were convinced we were going to lose our asses, and we have never not sold out Sokals since then. Yeah. And we did. Yeah, we did. I remember we ran at Weyerbacher for Bash at the Brewery. It was supposed to happen in April of 2020, but as we know, nothing happened in April of 2020. Yes. So I think we actually did it. It was maybe 2 years, pretty close to the day. Like, it was in like April or like the first weekend of May in 22, we did it. And that capacity there was like 400-ish. So it was double. It was more than double what Sokals was. And we were just like, oh my God, we're never gonna, that's so many people. How do we do that? And like, we sold that mother out, like capacity crowd hanging from the rafters, absolute pandemonium, it was the best. And then from there, Steel Stacks, which is Arts Quest, is like a local nonprofit that does they're the engine behind Music Fest. Yeah. Which, 1.2 million people or whatever come to Bethlehem.
That's right. Which is the engine behind the area.
Yeah. So Arts Quest reached out to us and was like, hey, would you ever want to do this? And I wasn't convinced at the time that they knew what they were buying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was just like,
this thing.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, sure. I mean, if, again, just give me the permission slip and I'll do something dumb, And man, like, that show crushed. We did like, I want to say there were more than 750 people there, which again was just like, how? Like, it was so daunting. And then it happened, and it's like, and it's not me. It's not Ultramantis. It's like this whole thing around us where it's just like everybody cares. Right. And it's just, it's the same driving principle behind LVAC, and it's the same driving principle behind Square of Opposition Records, and it's the same driving principle between the shows that I've been booking since I was 17, of just, you just do it. And hopefully it works.
That's right. See what sticks. Nothing happens unless you take the risk.
Right. I'm not doing it to make the most money. I'm not doing it to get all the glory. I'm just going to do something that I think is fun and that I think will be overall net positive. Let's see how that works, you know? Oh,
yeah. I do know. It's the driving principle behind our business as well, which is really the connection. You know, not only do we love working with you, but it was only the natural growth that we would build this partnership even further. And as much as the pandemic sucked, you know, it opened up some doors. And when the world all of a sudden was not allowed indoors, the drive-in became ultra appealing for people that had an audience to feed. And at that point, you know, going through the timeline here, you were well established with LVAC, the wrestling arm of LVAC. So naturally, from what I'm remembering, I think you approached us. I don't think it was the other way around. Am I right?
Oh, now you're going to make me look desperate. No, I actually, what it was, the real origin is that Bryce Remsburg, who's a referee with AEW now.
Yes.
He had approached you guys.
That's right.
It was one of those things where, you know, you only have so many hours in the day, and sometimes it'll happen when it was meant to happen. And when he got signed to AEW, he talked to me and he was just like, listen, this is too good of an idea to not do it. Please make this happen, you know? And so, you know, he gave me the blessing to steal his idea and to beat you guys over the head with it and be like, I think this can work. I think this can work. I think this can work. And, you know, I think we've been proven pretty right.
Hell yeah. It was not a hard sell for me or the team, where it's like the idea of a squared circle underneath of that massive Mahoning screen, live wrestling before wrestling movies. Like, it was so in the vein of like everything we were going after, like to make a show a spectacle. And like, boy, oh boy, were you guys bringing the spectacle. And we had expectations that first year. Well, that's the thing too. It was clear that we had a crossover already. You know, there was already people who were LVAC peeps just invading the Mahoning on a regular basis. So it was like, well, this is going to work at least on a certain level, you know?
And I think
not even knowing how amazing the show is that you guys put on, you know?
Right. And I maintain still, and I know that this year I'm going to be proven right again, is there are Mahoning people that would like what we do. They just have to try it. And every year I think that we've gotten some new people to try this out and say, I've never seen this. I thought it was just smoky bars, or I thought it was, you know, I thought it was WWE. I didn't know it could be this like sort of DIY, rough around the edges, accessible thing that also is self-aware and is fun, but isn't stupid, and it's not embarrassing. It's not like, I think that wrestling is such a silly premise that I think that people are embarrassed to say they're wrestling fans, but there's nothing embarrassing about liking wrestling. Everybody is a wrestling fan. They just don't know it yet.
That's right.
If you just, it's storytelling. It's the most basic, simple idea of just good versus evil, you know.
It's like live action superheroes.
That's the thing. Entertainment, you know, is entertainment. It just takes over you.
Yeah. And also on the flip side, that cuts both ways too. Jeff Cannonball fucking loves the Mahoning Drive-In.
Oh yeah.
The very first time he was ever there to wrestle on one of our shows. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that Jeff is one of my favorite people in wrestling. Jeff is probably one of my favorite people in the world in general. Jeff is wonderful.
Yeah.
And to know, like, just by doing what I thought made sense, and I'm not the only person. Virgil, Bryce, Ultramantis Junior, who helps, like he's the other, like Dan Champion, whatever, like this village that builds this thing, we made a little dent on Jeff's life, and that's cool in a positive way. And that's so great. Cause it's like, I love Jeff. Yeah. He's the best. And so if I made his life a little better, right. If I made his life a little better, then I won the fucking lottery. You know what I mean?
And that's the through line. I mean, that's really the motivator behind all of our shows. Like you said, the mentality going into this thing is, let's try to be unique. Let's try to do something a little bit different. Let's try to put on a show and see if it connects. And the beautiful thing for both of our businesses is that it so has connected. It's really created this loving, supportive kind of DIY punk rock world that people really respect and can rally behind. It motivates as well. Like I said, it's a great motivator to see people around us really doing their thing and doing it like full steam. And, like I said at the head of this podcast, you're one of those guys, not just for me, but for a lot of people, that's just like a cornerstone of, yep, that's how you do it. You just lead with heart. You lead with passion. The rest will fall into place. I want to give the guys an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have on their minds.
Mark, when Mark emailed, he asked like if I wanted any questions, and I was like, nah, man, I'm a talker. And I was just like, these poor guys, between Virgil and me, they're screwed.
That's every episode. I always have to apologize.
Jeff and Mark, you have my apologies, please.
Yeah. No, it's great. It takes all the pressure off me to be charming.
Well, it just comes so natural to you,
That's right.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. What do you got for him, Mark?
Well, the one thing I wanted to talk about involving the Real Rumble wrestling extravaganzas, and what I know of the LVAC in the field, is there is a certain alien life form that tends to show up at these shows. And I think it's brilliant. And I don't know if that's something you want to give away or not, but how is it that a certain alien life form, commonly referred to as Alf, often shows up at your shows?
Well, I happen to have a personal connection. I know a guy who knows a guy. And I think it was our second show that we ever did, which our first show was Let's Hang Out. The second show was Let's Hang Out Again. And that Let's Hang Out Again was a Halloween show. So I invited my friend Alf from television to come.
TV's Alf, right?
Yep.
Also known as Gordon Shumway. You offered cats, I think.
Hey, kayfabe. Okay, kayfabe.
Sorry.
He's Alf. So when we did like, I always do the headshots to try to promote the stuff. And that's always been the same sort of general format. And so, we promoted as Alf from television, and that was it. And he had such a good time at our shows. Although the one time the dastardly Commissioner Chris Reject stole from someone else an Alf costume. I don't know where, but it was a really good recreation. And he, I think that he delivered a low blow to Ultramantis Black at an opportune moment and revealed himself. And then he pops up once in a while. You never know. He showed up at the drive-in. He was there camping. Who knew? Yeah. It's a good thing that Chris Worthless and Jeff Cannonball didn't crush him. That would have been very upsetting.
Yeah, we do have
he
some
showed
lot
up.
Cats, so he was very
yes. Which
That's what happened to that one kid.
After the first Real Rumble, one of those lot cats went home with Ultramantis Black because little known, actually not that little known, but widely known fact is Ultramantis Black loves cats. So he adopted a cat from the lot and named it Rowdy.
I love it.
And then I think the next Christmas, Freddy Krueger or Freddy from the movies showed up.
Yes.
Michael Myers has made an appearance.
Michael from the movie. Right.
Yes. And then at Christmas, we had what the hell was it called? It was like a Yuletide Carnage match or something like that. And it was a death match adjacent thing with Club Soda, which is Jeff Cannonball and Puff and Simon Sutherland, their mouthpiece, and then Erica Lee. wrestled against Lucky 13, who's a real son of a bitch, Brandon Kirk, and Alley Cat. And there were Christmas presents all around with cheese graters and cookie sheets and things of that nature. And one of them unexpectedly had Alf inside of it. So, you know,
he's been known to show up. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, but it's, hey, that's show business, baby. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Alf and I have had a relationship for a very long time, and he just fell in love with the shows. So he's drawn to them.
So come to a future Real Rumble at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, and you too might be able to. We can't promise meet, but see at a distance. TV now. And some of those, I want to mention too, some of the Real Rumbles that you've done in the past, you've videotaped. It's not tape. You video recorded and have available on DVD.
Yes, yeah. I don't want to get too shilly with the plugs. We can do that later, but anytime that we have events, we have DVDs. I have DVDs for sale through Merch Bin, and then you can download just digital files from Smart Mark Video. That's the company that does all the videoing and the editing, and they produce the DVDs for us. I mean, I do all the layouts.
An amazing
they're awesome.
Job.
Yeah. They do a killer job.
They're collectible, and they're the perfect late night secret feature fodder. Like when people are like, all right, I just got slammed over the head with 3 horror films. Come in for a landing with a little live wrestling at the Mahoning.
Well, it's great because the first year you did that, a couple of the wrestlers fought their way through our snack bar and projection booth, utilizing elements of said locations. Somebody got popcorn in the face. Somebody got a Seals and Crofts album broken over their head.
Well, and that's
film reel upside the head.
That's a bonus feature, a DVD home video only for I think it's year 1. It was Chris Worthless.
That's right.
And Ultramantis in a parking lot brawl, a drive-in Donnybrook, if you will.
Yes. Boy, that's a magical memory burned into my soul.
Well, I think Mark threw some popcorn maybe before Jeff Cannonball.
That's right. He became an official heel.
He was running his mouth.
I know. He's seen the error of his ways.
And
him and Big Dan.
He needed to be humble.
I mean, I've not seen personality changes more drastic. Jeff Cannonball used to be a real loudmouth prick, and Dan Champion was a real shitheel, but the two of them have both just seen the LVAC has made lovers out of them, you know?
Yeah, fan favorites. Absolutely. How about you, Jeff? Any questions for the great Chris?
I was just wondering, between the record company and the screen printing and, of course, the wrestling, because I know what it's like working at a radio station and then having the movie theater, what out of those 3, what would you say takes most of your time?
Oh, the screen printing company, for sure. That's the only real job. We don't.
Okay.
The record label has always been a crime of passion. It's always been a passion project. I've never made money on that. At its peak, it probably broke even. And then the wrestling shows, you know, we break even or lose a couple bucks on almost every show that we do, but there's so much fun. How do you not, you know what I mean? But the screen printing company that's my real job, quote unquote.
Yeah. I was going to say, you have a lot of fun with everything. And that's what we try to do at the drive-in. We have so much fun running it and being there on the weekends. You know, it's just hard to nail down where you spend most of your time. So I was just curious.
And you've been able to really expand our offerings on the lot, as well as, I guess, your offerings for the business. So can you talk a little bit about Merch Bin and kind of where this came from? I take it it's all connected to the band scene and the crossover with the screen printing.
Yeah. So it really was a very organic sort of growth. You know, I was printing shirts for Iron Chic, and I was printing shirts for Gloss, and these were bands that were selling a lot of shirts. And it was people that I'd been friends with for even then a decade or longer, and now damn near 2 decades, you know, in some cases. And so it just was natural of like, hey, you guys don't have an online store. We already print all your stuff. So why don't we just print more of it and sell it online? And then kind of takes care of itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was it. And then, you know, we've expanded, and it's no different than how we ended up doing stuff for you guys, was just like, hey, you know, we do this already. We have it. Why don't we use this as an avenue to sell? At Halloween, towards the end of the season, we sold the pumpkin hoodie, the jack-o'-lantern hoodie.
Yep.
If there's some leftovers from an event, we have an opportunity to sell some that way. Or if we oversell, we can set something up quick like that. We've done it for Harry with Exhumed as well. The Schlocko-Rama shirts. He sold out of them unexpectedly on Friday. I was there Friday, and he was like, Chris, what do we do? And so I'm at my car waiting for the first feature to start. I'm setting up a thing on my phone, and the Wi-Fi signal, or the the data signal up there is atrocious.
Yeah.
But
believe me, we know. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, it was just like, hey, this makes perfect sense. So, you know, we have your store set up. I have an LVAC store because, for, you know, especially with all the wrestling DVDs now, it's like, well, people can go there all the time and buy them. And over the years, you know, we do a lot of LVAC, you know, branded t-shirts, either for promo to give away, or, you know, when somebody orders 100 shirts, I'll toss them an LVAC shirt, because who doesn't like a shirt, you know?
We know that.
But there's also people that aren't ordering shirts that would just love to have a really comfy shirt for $25 or $20 or whatever. And so, and that really too, like when the pandemic hit, holy crap. I mean, the shop shut down just like everything else. You know, when the governor shut the state down, I went home and I didn't know what to do. So I put up some shirts online, and I said, here, I can print these on my own and I can mail them out. We sold like 300 shirts in, you know, that month that we were shut down, which was like incredible. You know what I mean? And beyond, like, yeah, it brings in money, but it's also just like that outpouring of support, just like my little Grinch heart grew, you know?
You're like, my peeps are there for me.
Yeah, it was so nice. And so that was like, that was huge. So yeah, so Merch Bin is just, it's just the logical extension of, hey, we're already doing this anyway. Why don't we let somebody from Wisconsin who's never been to the drive-in order a hoodie? Wouldn't that be cool?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what we found, you know, is the amount of people that love the Mahoning, it grows every year, but the amount of people that may never make it, so that may, you know, be watching us from afar, to be able to offer them merch. And really, on the business model front, it was a savior, because it was so hard for us to gauge months out sometimes, like, how well is a show gonna do, you know?
Right.
So we'll order X amount of shirts. Sometimes we'll sell out of them immediately and people are upset, or we'll have too many, you know? This is the perfect balance where it's like, all right, we found our sweet spot and everybody's happy. Even if we happen to sell out of your size, bang, you get it. It'll come to you within the month and everybody's happy, you know?
Right. And the stakes are pretty low. You know, I mean, there's been a couple of shows where people have the pre-sale, like Ghostbusters. We probably ended up selling online as many as you sold on the lot, you know?
Yeah, maybe even more. It was insane.
And that's like, if you guys had bought twice as many shirts, you're really rolling the dice with thousands of dollars.
Hell yeah.
And on the flip side, like, this is just, you know, people got from a business standpoint, from Mahoning, you don't have to leave that money on the table, which is great. Yep. And none of your audience, this is also, I think this is a modern business principle that our like forefathers or whatever generations past didn't understand, is like, just be straight up and be honest. And it's like, people want to give the Mahoning money because they get it. Stuff is expensive. Stuff costs money. It's not free to run this place, and they want it to survive. So they want to buy a shirt. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no used car salesman bullshit going on. It's just like, yeah, I want to support. So if you can give them, like, when I say you're leaving money on the table, that sounds like such a crass, opportunistic capitalist thing of like, oh, we're just trying to squeeze the money out of people. But the reality is like, well
they want it. Yeah.
They want it.
Yeah,
and that's great. And they want it because the shirt is sick, and they want it because they like Mark, and they like Virgil, and they like Jeff, and they like Beth, and they like all those people. And it's like this, they're so excited. They want, if my $20 for a shirt not only gets me a shirt, but also supports this thing that I love, of course I want to do that.
Win.
Yeah. Win-win. Yep.
That's right. Well, that wasn't a plug, but you guys can totally head over to our website and find the merch bin if you guys do want to grab some Mahoning merch. And throughout the season, you'll see new items added as we roll through our event shirts. Now, one thing for our business that's been such a blessing that was really born out of the pandemic has been our Patreon, the extension of our business. And I know that you recently started a Patreon and you're doing a lot of amazing things over there. So I wanted to give you the floor to let people know about that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the shilling opportunity, so that real quick, a plug on the merch bin direct is just merchbin.net. And that will link like on that landing page. You can go to Mahoning, you can go to LVAC. Merchbin.net will get you all that stuff. We started the Patreon, like Virgil said. I with the moving costs, again, like I said, we're talking 6 figures of renovations. Our mortgage is going to be a lot more than our rent was. And so we did do a GoFundMe, which is still up, and that's wonderful. Like people have been so generous there. I wanted to do a Patreon because I thought that would be a nice way to sort of have a prolonged connection with people and a new project to work on. And really, I didn't expect it, but it's turned into like a wonderful, positive distraction.
Yeah.
Like when the renovation project has just broken my back and made me miserable, I have something fun to do with the Patreon. I can spitball ideas and I can rant and rave and bounce stuff off of people and have those sort of like fun, creative brainstorm sessions. And then also like we get to make more cool stuff. And I get to send this to people and they get it and they say, hey, this is cool stuff, which is great,
Yeah.
So our Patreon, so like there's just like anybody else, there's a couple different tiers. There's one that's just extra digital content, some extra pictures, stuff like that, videos. And then there's one that you get a shirt every other month. And then there's one that you get a shirt every month. And so we went back into our archives and we pulled out designs that never really saw the light or haven't been printed in years, or we didn't do it a certain way. And that's been really, really fun. Sokals, again, super supportive of all the dumb stuff that I like to do. Let us have like a VIP party on a night that they weren't open. So people could come and like Electro Ant and Ultimo Ant came, Big Dan came, Razor Wing came, like wrestlers came and hung out, like, in their outfits and their masks. And we bowled and played ping pong. And that was really fun. Most recently we did like a little crash course screen printing workshop, which was really
I saw
fun.
that looked awesome. Yeah,
that was really nice. But yeah, it's like, to me, the easiest stuff was like, it's transactional. So the highest tier where you get a shirt every month is $30, which $30, you get a shirt mailed to you.
You're paying that for any shirt. Yeah.
Right. And so that's done. So then we have an event every once in a while. That's cool. That's something fun that you can't get somewhere else, So that project has been fun. It's been a nice distraction, and it has really, really been successful, pretty much on a level that I wasn't confident we could do because the threshold of admission, because we're giving you a t-shirt, a lot of Patreons I see are for podcasts. So it's like $1, $3, $5 a month. It's like, I'll skip Starbucks one day and I'm good,
Yeah.
Right.
But the support has just been like really, really nice. And I think that, like I said, I didn't expect it to be such a ray of sunshine in a really difficult, grueling 6 months, but it's been really, really fun. And it seems like the people that have been on board have been really enthusiastic about it. And, it's fun that they get a shirt that at most there's maybe 45 in existence. You know what I mean? And we always do like same sort of thing. It's a premium blank. It's not like a cheap basic t-shirt. It's a couple colors. It's a nice print. We did, the people that are at the top tier got hoodies.
Nice.
For their,
So
it's
you
just
take
like,
care of your peeps.
Yeah, I mean, these people are going hard for us. You know what I mean? Like if you sign up and you say, I'll give you $30 a month, like I'm going to earn that money. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to give you a lot more. And even like when they sign up, they get a welcome gift. You know what I mean? So that's like a tote bag and a bunch of stickers. Every month they get stickers. Like
Awesome.
we really try to, like, if you're giving me $30 a month, I'm going to make sure to give you more than that worth of stuff, because that's so flattering and like so uplifting that you would do that for us, because
it's so relatable. We found such joy in the Patreon community, because that's what it is, an extension of the community, maybe a more focused version of the community. But we bounce ideas off these people. They've become like truly part of the family, the people we can rely on. It's a blessing to have this as, something that we can utilize, and something that really we never thought about. And it was just the perfect timing for us to be able to offer this. And we talk about it all the time. The social media has become very much a promotional tool for a lot of people. And to really be able to get personal with people, like these are the people that actually care about us, we can tap into this and make it well worth their time. Mark, I'm sure, can relate to that. The amount of posts and work that go into making sure that everybody's happy, it goes a long way, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you all night. We could talk to you all night, but we're going to wrap this puppy up. Why don't you let the folks know where they can find you guys on the social medias, online, and how they can support you, whether it's with the wrestling arm or the screen printing arm or any of that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And yes, we should cut this off. We talk too much. I think we're fun and interesting and handsome and all that stuff. But listen, enough is enough.
Yeah.
So the website is lvacx.com. Instagram, it's at the LVAC. We have a Threads and we have a Blue Sky. It's some variation of the LVAC on all that stuff. Merchbin.net is some online commerce stuff. Patreon.com/LVAC is our Patreon.
Yes.
And that's, the wrestling stuff, it's all the same. It's all, if you crack open my head, this is what it is. So I promote wrestling stuff on the LVAC Instagram, and I post pictures of my goofy looking dogs on the LVAC Instagram.
It's all
I sell DVDs on the merch bin in the LVAC collection. So it's like there's no separation. It all bleeds together in this is where my heart is, this is where my head is. And so hopefully enough people continue to dig the stuff that it keeps going. And hopefully, even if they don't dig the other stuff, they keep ordering shirts and they enjoy working. If that's what it comes down to, is that we make ordering shirts easy, hell yeah. Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So xlvacx.com is the website, and you'll see us up at Mahoning all summer long. And
that's right. And of course, not to tease, but it is the season of announcements. You guys can absolutely look forward to the return of Real Rumble this year. It is going to be absolutely amazing. I cannot wait.
Number 5, baby.
That's right. Yeah, I was going to say we're up to number 5. And just to tease that for people, July 21st. I'm not going to tell you what's playing.
What?
But July 21st, you guys can look forward to it. All right. We love you so much. Guys, I can't say enough about this guy. He truly is the example for all of us. And honestly, I know it. We are the dreamers. And to have somebody that wasn't afraid to kind of follow through with his heart, his dreams, and to see it all kind of come to fruition it's a treat for all of us who are friends and fans. So keep doing your thing.
If I if I have like a little final word, it would just be the change that you want to see. If somebody isn't doing something cool, do it. That's all.
Beautiful.
That's right. If
that.
you build it, they will come. That's how it goes.
I like that.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, my man. Truly. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field. And most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night and God bless you.